Learning objectives. Why use learning objective? By defining where you intended to go, you increase the likelihood the learners end up in the intended destination. Guides the learner help his her focus on what need to be learned and set priorities. Shows the learner what behavior are valued, focus and organizes the instructor. Create the learner's bias for self-assessment, sets the stage for what the mastered still master the, what the master skill looks like. Effective learning objectives are learner focused, not instructor or content focused. Focused on the intended learning that result from an active course or program, reflective of the institution's mission and the value for which it represents, reflects important non-trivial aspects of the learning that are credible to the learner, focus on skills and abilities central to the discipline and based on professional standards, capture general concepts but with enough detail to be clear, specific and measurable or observable, focuses on aspects of learning that will develop and endure but that can be assessed in some form now. Goals versus learning objectives. Goals are statements that describe in broad terms what the learner will gain from instruction. For example, learner will gain appreciation of the role of a family medicine physician in the healthcare system. The term goal and objective are sometimes used interchangeably. This is wrong. They are different. Goals are broad and sometimes difficult to measure. The important thing about goals is that they help us focus on the big and important picture. I am sure that everyone in family medicine would agree that the goal stated on the slide above is important and something we want the learner to gain. From this, one could write a set of related specific and measurable learning objectives. Goals versus learning objectives. Objectives are statements which describe specifically what the learner is expected to achieve as a result of instruction. Objectives direct attention to the learner and the types of behaviors they should exhibit. Sometimes these statements are called behavioral objectives. For example, learner will list three characteristics that make the family medicine physician distinctive from other specialists in the healthcare system. Some other name you will see for learning objectives include behavioral objectives, learning outcomes, enabling objectives, terminal objectives, educational objectives, performance objectives, instructional objectives, aims, competencies. Learning Objective Major 1975. Ideal learning objectives include a measurable verb, one task or behavior per verb. Choose a verb that describe the type of behavior or task the learner must display after training. Number 2, the condition. How the task or behavior will be performed. Under what conditions will the task be performed? Number 3, the standard for acceptable performance. How well the task or behavior must be performed to meet the standard. Exercise evaluating learning objectives. Use the criteria on the previous slide to evaluate the learning objective that follow. Identify the objectives that meet most of the criteria presented. Discuss your selection with your colleagues and determine which objectives best meet the criteria. Writing learning objectives. Understand your audience. Learning objectives should be written from the perspective of the learner. not the instructor. Consider the characteristics of your audience when writing learning objectives. Create training and learning activities to support their needs and abilities. What they will expected to do after the training, their physical, mental, and thinking abilities, their educational level skills and abilities, how they best learn, what they need to know to do the job, what they already know about the job, have they been trained before, why they haven't been effective doing the task, what's in it for the learner to perform the tasks identified. Performance based versus content based training. Focus on skill mastery. Performance based course objectives are derived from analysis of real world needs and describe intended results. Content based course objectives are typically absent or used to describe the content to be covered. Performance based course content of the instruction is derived from the objectives to be accomplished. Content based course content of the instruction is usually determined by the subject matter specialist. Performance based course learners study only what they do not know yet, while in content based course all trainees study the same content. Performance based course learner is given the opportunity to practice each objective. In content based course, trainees are given few opportunities to practice the entire objectives. In performance based course, instruction include only what is intended to accomplish the objectives. While in content based course, instruction may include content irrelevant to the need. Performance based course, the primary instructor role is that of coaching, while in the content based course, the primary instructor role is that of presenting. In performance test, skill checks are used for diagnosing difficulties, confirming mastery, and as opportunities to make trainees feel good about their progress. In content, when used at all, tests are used mainly as basis for grading. Test is as basis for determining how well each student performing in comparison with other course attendees. In performance, learners study and practice until they have reached mastery of the objectives. In content, trainees study until fixed course time has ended. In performance, on reaching mastery, learners receive a certificate of achievement, while in content-based course, at course completion, trainees receive a certification of attendance. Performance-based courses are based on strong learning objectives. Execution of strong learning objectives result in skill mastery. Focus on skill mastery in performance-based course. Learning objectives, learning objective categories or domains. Type or domains of learning objectives: cognitive, knowing, psychomotor, doing, affective, feeling. Three domains of the types of domains of learning objectives. Cognitive objectives are those ones we normally think about. Psychomotor objectives are also stated, but many times they are stated in vague terms, and they could be made much clearer if the criterion were included as a part of the objective. We rarely see learning objectives in the affective domain. Statements of affective outcome usually include phrases like show sensitivity, to accept responsibility, for be willing to demonstrate commitment to. Affective domain or objectives can be hand to write, but are really hard to measure since the measurement of these involves a lot of subjectivity. Levels of learning objectivity. Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy. Number 1, knowledge. Number 2, comprehension. Number 3, application. Number 4, analysis. Number 5, synthesis. Number 6, evaluation. Number 1, knowledge. Number 2, comprehension. Number 3, application. Number 4, analysis. Number 5, synthesis. Number 6, evaluation. The levels of learning objective Bloom taxonomy. 6 levels. Bloom taxonomy levels. Benjamin Bloom taxonomy has been around since the mid 1950s. His structure for thinking behaviors provide a nice stair-step approach to thinking about the levels of learning. So here are 6 levels from knowledge to evaluation. Number 1, knowledge. Focus on memorization and recall. Number 2, comprehension. Focus on understanding the information. Number 3, application. Focus on being able to apply what is understood. Number 4, analysis. Focus on being able to take apart and use critical thinking skills to understand what was applied. Number 5, synthesis. Taking what is known and has been applied and using it in different ways. Number 6, and the last one, is evaluation. Assessing what has been applied and providing feedback on how the task is completed. Exercise. Evaluating levels of objective. Review levels of learning objective slide. Review the learning of objectives on the following slides and answer the following questions. Which levels of Bloom taxonomy is the first objective listed? What level is the second one listed? The second one, which is the first one in the list and which is the second one? Exercise. Evaluating levels of objectives. Name 5 causes of dizziness. What is the level of this objective? Name 5 causes of dizziness. Give patient case description and determine the 3 most likely cause of dizziness. Here are 2 examples of learning objectives at different levels. Which level of Bloom taxonomy is the first one? What level is the second one? Writing a learning objective. In the example, the lesson plan calls for the learner to first generate a graphic organizer about a chapter titled A Decisive Battle. The learner is asked to create a timeline of the main event at Gettysburg. The learner will assess each timeline using a rubric. Any student who does not earn a rubric rating of 3 or better will require additional instruction and enforcement. See example of the objective on the next slide. Writing learning objectives. A well-stated objective provides a clear picture of the outcome or performance you expected as a result of the lesson. It should be specific, concise, and most importantly, observable or measurable. Number 1, behavior. What a learner will be able to do. For example, learner will create a timeline of the main event at Gettysburg. Number 2, conditions. How they will be able to do it. After generating a graphic organizer based on Chapter 5, A Decisive Battle. Number 3, standard of performance. Degree of accuracy. With a rubric rating out of 3 out of 5. With a rubric rating of 3 out of 5 or better. In the example, the lesson plan would call for the learner to first generate a graphic organizer about the chapter title A Decisive Battle. Then the learner will create a timeline of the main event at Gettysburg. The learner will assess each timeline using a rubric. Any student who does not earn a rubric rating of 3 better will require additional instruction and enforcement. Examples. Learning objectives format. After training period, the learner will be able to perform task. The task must be performed under the following conditions. And condition, the following standard must be met. Standard. Perform task when given condition and the learner must train to standards. Examples learning objective format. Relating to the measurable verb to Bloom's level. Taxonomy and verbs. Knowledge, define. Comprehension. Number 2, explain. Number 3, application, apply. Number 4, analysis, distinguish. Number 5, synthesis, design. Number 6, evaluation, evaluate. Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy has been around since the mid 1950s. His structure of cognitive behavior provides a nice stair-step approach to thinking about levels of learning. Knowledge focus on memorization, comprehension focus on understanding the information memorized, application focus on being be able to apply what is understood, analysis focus on being applied to take apart and use critical thinking skills to understand what was applied. Number 4, synthesis is Number 5, synthesis is taking what known and has been applied and using it in different ways. Number 6, evaluate is being able to assess what has been applied and provide feedback on how the task is completed. Start all objective with verbs. So these are the verbs of these 6 levels. Number 1, knowledge. Define, memorize, list, recall, recognize, repeat, relate, related, record, name, identify, acquire, underline, label, state, relate, order. Number 2 is comprehension. Restate, discuss, describe, identify, locate, report, explain, express, recognize, review, transform, represent, select, tell, indicate. Number 3, application. Translate, interpret, apply, practice, illustrate, operate, convert, explain, demonstrate, dramatize, sketch, employ, schedule, use, sequence, prepare, predict, generalize, implement, plan, show, solve, complete. Number 4 is analysis. Distinguish, differentiate, appraise, analyze, calculate, criticize, estimate, discover, order, compare, contrast, examine, test, relate, experiment, investigate, question, detect, break down, contrast, diagram, debate, examine, classify, categorize, determine, inspect, inventory. Number 5, synthesize. Synthesis. Compose, plan, propose, design, assemble, create, write, prepare, formulate, organize, manage, construct, set up, systemize, arrange, collect, construct, organize, systemize, argue, conclude, create, integrate, theorize, combine, improve, manage, specify, derive, set up. And the last and the 6th stage is evaluation. Judge, appraise, measure, value, estimate, choose, compute, assess, test, evaluate, revise, score, select, rank, check, defend, verify, justify, criticize, rate, support, weigh. Standard are measurable levels and appropriate verb for level. How often? At least once per hour. At the start of every cycle, before or after starting the task. How well? Exactly 7%. No more than 1 error. Accurate to 3 decimal points. Within 15 minutes, never use a time standard unless it's required by the job. How many? Identify at least 16 times. Identify at least 16 items. Produce 4 items. How much? 100 meters long. 1.5 block before turning. How will we know it is okay? Until the left hand is touching. By speaking only after customer has spoken. Combination. Produce at least 15 per hour. How many and how often? Until the ditch is 300 feet long with tapering slopes. How much and we know it is okay. Condition with examples. What is given? Appropriate verb for level. Level is what is given. by checking a chart, by looking at photo, by referring to the manual. What is not given without reference to the manual with no supervision? What are the variables, no matter how upset the customer becomes? Combinations. When driving, what is given in the city variable? Example of well-written objectives. After completing this course, you will be able to write the name of the leader of Pakistan movement, describe the reasons of creation of Pakistan, explain the need of living things, list the three elements of an atom, draw a diagram of cell and write names of the parts. This objective is written around discrete observable behavior that have no ambiguity as to whether the learner has achieved them. Introduction to learning outcomes. One learns from books and examples only that certain things can be done. Actual learning requires that you do those things. This quote reflects that learning is a lifelong process. Agree? Likewise, the learning outcome, the result or impact of learning, can't be confined to grades or marks obtained by learners in exams. What is a learning outcome? A learning outcome is what the learner should be able to do, perform as a result of some learning experience. In the context of formal education, students should be able to do at the end of a program or course or instructional unit. In a broader perspective, it is amalgamation of a learner's knowledge, skill set, and the ability to leverage them in real time situation. Focus of student learning outcomes. The learning outcome must be SMART, S-M-A-R-T, SMART, or clearly defined in terms of attainability. S for specific, M for measurable, A for achievable, R for realistic, and T for timely, S-M-A-R-T. Do's and don'ts of articulating learning outcomes. Do's: must meet educational goals, offer a roadmap to achieve COs and POs. The learning outcome must be measurable. Knowledge or skill development. Focus on developing a lifelong learning mindset. Make students capable of handling problems in real life situations. So this is the end of the learning objectives that we have read in this video. Learning objectives.